Rawteur, Issa Rae's color creative, is being sued by 3 writers for the profits from her hit film, One of Them Days. You know the one, the movie with SZA and Keke Palmer. It amounts to approximately $37 million plus damages, give or take. Now, when I pulled the filings from Pacer, what really jumped out to me wasn't the narrative that the writers had about what happened. It was actually the evidence, because you see, the complaint itself comes bundled with 3 exhibits. Now, Exhibit A is the copyright certificate. It shows that the plaintiffs registered their screenplay called One of Those Days with the US Copyright Office back in 2020. That's important because it establishes they aren't just claiming they had an idea. They legally secured ownership of it. Now, Exhibit B is the heart of their argument. It's a detailed list of alleged similarities between their script and Issa Rae's film, One of Them Days. And this isn't just, well, they're both comedies about friends. It's about 29 separate points that include titles, characters, plot lines, even specific props and gags. So, for example, both projects feature 2 female leads with opposite personalities. One traditional, one is a maverick. And both stories open with those characters in nearly identical circumstances. The plaintiffs point out, quote, "The title of both movies are very similar. Ours is One of Those Days. Theirs is One of Them Days." Unquote. Another example, quote, "In their script, the maverick character, which is SZA, with a non-traditional job approach, drives a beater, a yellow Pinto-like car. And in our script, that same character foil, Amy, drives a 1997 Geo Prism, which is a total beater as well." Unquote. So it goes even deeper than that, because there's robberies, thugs with 2 lackeys, money problems, snake encounters, dogs that cause chaos, even parallel endings where the women stumble into entrepreneurial success at a big party. So this isn't just a fly-by-night lawsuit. Like, they might have a real claim here. Then there's Exhibit C. Clap that hype button. It spreads this video faster and keeps the updates hitting your homepage first. A declaration from screenwriter John Brancato. If his name sounds familiar, it should. He co-wrote The Net, Terminator Salvation, and other major films. Brancato was brought in to read both scripts, and in his expert view, the overlap wasn't coincidental. His resume is attached to the exhibit to show he's not just any writer, right? He served on the Writers Guild of America Board of Directors and literally helped rewrite the Guild's screen credits manual. So before you even get into the backstory of how this script supposedly reached Rae's circle, the exhibits are designed to hit hard. Quote, "We have a registered script, we have a long list of parallels, and we have an expert who says those parallels matter." Unquote. The backbone of the case is Exhibit B, the similarities chart. The writers say there are 29 parallels between their screenplay and One of Them Days. Let's walk through some of the strongest ones. Now, one of the first things they point to is a robbery sequence. Now, in both projects, the 2 main characters are beaten up and robbed of their money in almost exactly the same kind of street encounter. In their words, in the original short, the 2 main characters get beaten up and robbed for their money, which is the same in both scripts. Then there's how the villains are staged in both stories. The dangerous antagonist shows up with 2 henchmen at his side to intimidate the leads. The writers note, Doc Brown has 2 thug lackeys with him, which is the same as the villain Lolo, who has 2 lackeys with him as he enters the party. So similar in both. Now, both stories also weave in psychic or spiritual detours. In One of Them Days, SZA's character tries to use psychic abilities to track down her missing boyfriend and their stolen money. In the plaintiff's script, the leads go to a psychic named Gina, trying to recover stolen weed. Different items, but the same setup. Desperate characters chasing answers through a mystical encounter. There's even a parallel snake moment. In one version, a snake escapes its cage in an apartment. In the other, a pastor handles snakes that suddenly slither loose inside a weed shop. Different locations, but the same random chaotic plot beat. And then there's the endings that I mentioned previously. This is where the plaintiffs say the overlap is undeniable. See, both scripts end with the women stumbling into an entrepreneurial hustle that saves them. Their script has the women selling alien bongs, while Issa Rae's film has the women selling art at a courtyard party. In both cases, the resolution is the same. They cash out, celebrate, and finally win. Now, those are just 5 examples. The full filing lines up beats, characters, and motifs so specifically that the plaintiffs believe it can't be a coincidence. So that's the proof the writers are leaning on, but how do they frame it in court? That's where the actual complaint comes in. Now, it was filed in Central District of California on July 30th, 2025. The case is officially titled Joshua Isaacson, Sean Oku, and Tyrone Perry versus Sony Pictures Entertainment, TriStar Pictures, Color Creative Productions, Color Creative LLC, Sarita Singleton, and Doe's 1 through 10. And the complaint lays out 3 causes of action. First, copyright infringement. That's their big one, right? They're saying Rae's camp copied protectable elements of their screenplay and turned it into One of Them Days. Second, misappropriation of ideas. That's a state law claim you often see in Hollywood disputes. Basically, they pitched a concept in confidence and they claimed the defendants used it without permission or compensation. Third, conversion. That's usually used for property, but here it means the wrongful taking of intellectual property, right? In other words, you took our script and treated it like it was yours. The writers aren't just asking for a slap on the wrist. They're demanding actual and statutory damages, the profits earned from the film, an injunction to stop further use, and of course, attorney's fees, and they check the box for a jury trial. So, in plain English, they want money, they want to block the film's future exploitation and possibly part 2, which apparently has been greenlit, and they want a jury of their peers to decide whether Rae's company and the studios crossed the line. Now here's the question any copyright case has to answer. Even if 2 works are similar, how did the defendants get access to the original script? The writers say they can show that too. Back in October 2023, plaintiff Joshua Isaacson emailed their script one of those days to producer Danny Hamoy. The email literally says, per our conversation, please find the script for one of those days. It's tonally like Dude, Where's My Car meets Friday. Months later, in 2024, they pitched again. This time, it was to producers Roman Arabia and Xavier Charles. And this detail matters because according to the complaint, Xavier Charles had previously worked with Issa Rae on her HBO series Insecure, right? So that's the connection, right? The plaintiffs argue this creates a clear chain of access. In fact, their attorney, Corey Bodie, told Sony directly in a January 31st, 2025 email, our clients gave the script to one of those days to Danny Hamoy, a well-known producer in the industry who we believe gave the script concept to one of the producers of One of Them Days. So from the plaintiff's perspective, it looks like this. Script submitted to multiple producers. One of those producers had ties to Issa Rae's camp. Months later, One of Them Days gets announced. That timeline is the bridge between their exhibits and their lawsuit. It's not just the movies look the same, it's we can show you when and how the script got into the defendant's hands. So what does all this really mean for writers in Hollywood? Well, cases like this highlight the tension at the core of the industry. Writers need to pitch to get noticed, but every time they hand over a script, they risk someone saying, hey, that idea wasn't yours to begin with. Studios, on the other hand, get pitched constantly, and they'll argue similarities don't prove theft. Sometimes stories just overlap. That's why a lawsuit like this one matters. It isn't just about One of Those Days versus One of Them Days. It's about the bigger question of how creators protect themselves when they put their work out there. And I'll be real with you. Every time I've ever submitted a script or, made a pitch, I've kept it simple. No signature, no script. If they wouldn't sign an NDA, they didn't get to read the script. They didn't get to hear my pitch. Because once your work is out there, there's no pulling it back. You can't put the rabbit back into the hat, the cat back into the bag, whatever animal, quote unquote cruelty reference you want to use there, right? Now, whether or not this case succeeds, it's a reminder of how fragile the line is between inspiration and infringement in Hollywood, and how every writer has to decide for themselves how much they're willing to risk just to get a shot. So what do you think? Are these just coincidences that happen when stories share similar themes, or do the writers have a real case here? Let me know in the comments, and for more industry insights, check out this video right here.